Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Hello. Can you hear me?
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. How about now? Testing 1 2 3. Yes, boss.
Will in the meantime, but that was the class they put on.
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Stearns County Board of Adjustment meeting for Thursday, September 14th. And let's begin our meeting by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call of members. Jill.
Yes.
George.
Yep.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Myself, I'm here. Amy.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
And Mike.
Yes.
Let it be noted that all members are present, and I'm going to go now through a kind of a process of our meeting tonight. So I have a couple of announcements to make. If you're in possession of a cell phone, I ask that you please put it on silent mode at this time, and that note that all testimony is being tape recorded for the record. If you're going to speak, you'll be asked to state your name and address for the record first, and then go ahead with your input after you have been recognized by me. Members of the Board of Adjustment are appointed by the County Board of Commissioners with one member from each of the 5 commissioner districts, 1 member at large, and 1 member appointed from the Planning Commission. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview now of how we do things. So what's going to happen first is I'm going to read the variance request and open the public hearing. While I'm reading the request, I'd ask that the applicant or their representative come forward and have a seat in front of the board by the microphone. Environmental Services staff will provide a brief overview of the requested variance, the staff report, and if any correspondence has been received regarding the variance request. The applicant or their representative will then provide any input, corrections, concerns, or comments. Once the applicant or their representatives have finished their testimony, the board will discuss the request and ask questions of staff or the applicant or their representative. And then upon completion of the board questions, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request. And if there is, I would ask that person to come up to the podium, state their name and address for the record, and give their testimony. Then when all testimony is complete, I will ask the board members for a motion to close the public hearing. Once the motion is passed to close the public hearing, there will be no further input from the audience, from the applicant or the Environmental Services staff unless being recognized by myself or if one of the board members wants some type of clarification. The board will then review and discuss the finding of facts. These findings are a series of questions that the board is required to answer based on Minnesota statute and the requirements of the ordinance. Based upon the answers to those questions, the board will either grant or deny the variance request. All questions must be answered in the affirmative by the board. Once the findings are complete, there will then be a motion to approve or deny the request based upon those findings. So our first item for this evening, number 1, request from Randy and Michelle Hansen from Eden Valley, from section 6.21A and 9.99A1 of Stearns County Land Use Zoning Ordinance number 439 to leave as constructed a 28 foot by 28 foot, 784 square foot residential accessory structure less than 10 feet to the property line. Also to construct a 20 foot by 28 foot residential accessory structure in addition that will be 1,344 square feet of accessory building area on a property line with 0.99 acres in the Shoreland Overlay District less than 10 feet to a property line. Said ordinance allows for a maximum accessory building area of 1,200 square feet for a property line with a 0.5 to a 0.99 acres and a building setback of 10 feet to a side property line. The affected property is the east half of the following described lot, a point on the west line of government lot 6, a distance of 610.3 feet north of the southwest corner of lot 6. And that property address is 24231 Deerbrook Road, Eden Valley, Minnesota. And if I can get your name and address for the public record, please.
Sure. My name is Randy Hansen, 24231 Deerbrook Road, Eden Valley, Minnesota.
Thank you very much. And then staff to your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Can I get a show of hands of those that had a chance to visit the site? Okay.
And can I get a voice call of that? Mike?
Yes.
Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
I was there. Amy?
Yes.
And Rob?
Yes, and I spoke with Michelle when I was there.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about
All right.
that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicants own a meets and bounds tract that contains 43,481 square feet, 0.99 of an acre. per the survey provided by the applicants. The property is zoned R1. The applicants purchased the property in 1999. There is an existing residential dwelling that was permitted and constructed in 1994 per the Stearns County Assessor's records. There is also a 784 square foot residential accessory structure on the property that was permitted and constructed in 1998. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Rice Lake, which is classified recreational development. Rice is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients, mercury, and fish tissue. The existing subsurface sewage treatment system for the residential dwelling was permitted and constructed in 2013. The system was certified compliant in July of 2023. The current impervious lot coverage for the property is 19.7%, and the proposed will be 21.07. Alternatives to the request would be to construct an addition that meets the maximum accessory building area requirements in a location that meets the setbacks required in the land use and zoning ordinance. Eden Lake Township, North Fork of the Crow River Watershed District, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request. I did receive one correspondence today on this. It was from a Ross Amundsen and Michelle Johnson Amundsen at 17353 TTT Road, Eden Valley, Minnesota 55329. We are writing regarding the variance request of Randy and Michelle Hansen. We received the notice due to being in close proximity to them. We certainly believe that this variance should be granted. We also understand that the neighbor right next door does not object to the request. Additionally, we question whether the square footage limitation applies to them. The ordinance restricting the square footage to 1,200 square feet applies to a lot size of 0.5 acres to 0.99 acres. Although the lot size on Stearns County maps says 1 acre, the math of the lot is 164 by 264 equals exactly 1 acre. The surveyor indicates a lot size of 0.9981 acres. The ordinance stops at 0.99 acres, therefore the restriction should not apply. Sincerely, Ross Amundsen and Michelle Johnson Amundsen. And that is all I have with regards to this request.
Thank you. Anything you'd like to say to the board, or any clarifications or anything?
No, I think what Amundsen said is pretty much what I was going to say. It's 0.9981, and I think we're being reasonable with our request.
Okay, any questions from board members for the applicant or staff?
I do have a question. Is there an original survey that does state that it is an acre lot?
Yeah. Actually, I have one from 1994 from Engelmeyer that shows exactly 1 acre.
Do you mind if can we take a look at that?
Sure. Put it right here.
And then, Jamie, this is a staff question, but how do we get 2 surveys with 2 different answers? I mean, what?
Surveyors go about their work the way they do. I can't answer that, Amy. I don't know.
Okay.
We just worked off the one that was provided to us. We never got a copy of this, so.
But would technology in 94 be different than the technology
I think
in
the
2023?
technology today would probably be more accurate, I would guess, if we would talk to the surveyors, but I can't verify that.
Then I have a question for staff. At what point does the county look at that and just round up a number? Every math class I taught, if it was .9981, it would have been 1.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, unfortunately, our ordinance only carries out 2 digits, and the 2 digits that we carry out for him are .99. And so
but wouldn't we round it up?
that's,
Yeah, Shelley, you can.
Mr. Chair, members of the Board of Adjustment, Bonnie, while I can appreciate the fact that in many instances rounding up is a great option, when we do rules and requirements and regulations, we bring it out to a certain number of decimal points for a reason. So if it meets that requirement, then we stick with that number. There is no rounding. If there is rounding in a number, for example, residential density is an area that we do rounding, and it's specifically called out in the ordinance where it allows you to do rounding. So in cases where we don't specifically call it out, then it's not allowed. But it's a good question. Thank you.
I have a question for applicant. Are you paying property taxes for an acre lot or for the .999?
1 acre, 1 acre lot. If you look on the county site, that's what it shows.
Mr. Chair and members of the Board of Adjustment, the property taxation is something that if they would like to dispute that, then they would have to go through the assessor's office and the auditor's office. So they are responsible for making the call on the taxation of that property. We have had circumstances where the numbers were off and they paid for one thing and then had to get an adjustment. So that's an opportunity to take a look at that. I don't know how much difference it makes in your taxes. I don't want to say it doesn't because I think they look at every fractional portion. So it's always something that could be looked into. But for our purposes, for zoning and the regulations, we look specifically at the rule that's in front of us, not the taxation.
Question.
For everyone, I'm in Environmental Services Director, Shelley Benson. Sorry.
Question for the applicant. Is there some kind of reason why you can't stay at 1,200 square feet?
Well, I mean, if I bring it down to that, I could, I suppose. I'd rather not. I guess I could shift the whole project, turn the whole addition so it follows the setback, so it doesn't go over the setback. That is an option.
Yeah,
So
I'm not asking about the setback. That's a whole nother
Yeah.
category. I'm asking about it's for that size of the lot. It says 1,200 square feet. So my question again is there some reason why you can't keep it at 1,200 square feet? Is it just a want rather than a need?
Well, I guess I'd like, the amount of square footage. So, it could be done, but I'd prefer not to. The cost, is going to, I have to look at, the cost of the project. And so for 1,200 square feet versus the, 1,340 or whatever it is.
So a follow-on question I have, it says the requirements are for the sidewall height 10 feet, building height 16 feet. Is this addition abiding by that?
Yeah, I have a sidewall height of 8 feet, and the peak, I think, is at 15.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
For the applicant, if I look at the numbers right, if you reduced it by 8 feet, you'd be right within a foot or two of where you need to be.
Yeah, I guess for what I want for square footage, 8 feet is.
What do you need the square footage for? You have big trucks or business equipment or?
Well, I have, sure, I have personal equipment and expanding, I do some pottery work and some things like that. So I'm looking for space for, I have some kilns that I need to rearrange, and so I'm looking at that as well.
Any other questions or comments for staff or the applicant?
Are we moving to the next part? We have to deal with the setbacks yet,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yep. Any other questions, yeah, anything, that's fine.
I have a question for the applicant. How did it get turned?
I think based on where how the house was built, and then we added that, outbuilding, I think it was squared up with the house. So I think that's what happened there.
Did you have it surveyed before you built the pole shed, the garage?
Oh, yeah, we had it all surveyed before we built the house. So, it's a good question. I don't have a good answer for you on that. Yeah.
Did you hire someone to come in and put the garage up for you? Or?
Well, it was my stepfather and myself that did the project. So, we didn't have a contractor, I guess you could say, that came in. But on this new project, we're working with Jason Vanderpool on it. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this variance request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the variance request? Hearing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion from Mike. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second from Ani. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So there's some options that we have here. We can start out with the existing detached garage. To do that is that. And the accessory structure, there's a finding of fact for that as well. There's a side property line as well that we can do, or we can combine them all. Which is the wish of the board?
Mr. Chair, I think the accessory structure, both the size and the distance from the property line, I feel comfortable combining them.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. So all right. So moving to our finding of facts, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, are you doing the after the fact first, or the
providing the construction for that accessory structure and then the property line there.
So the new piece onto the existing?
And we're going to let the existing be there first.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rob. That's what I was thinking.
Right, so we'll still go through two findings of
Yeah,
facts.
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
The after the fact first.
Okay.
Because then if you keep it, then we know that's okay.
All right. Yeah, we'll
Thank
do that
you.
existing. It's the garage, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that's fine. So working on that existing garage, detached garage. Number one, is the proposed use allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, it zones R1, and having a garage or accessory unit is allowed in R1.
Okay. Number one is a yes for Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that is a yes for number one. Number two, is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official control? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that the purpose of this ordinance is to ensure there's enough room between buildings and the property line so that safety equipment can get through or fire doesn't hop between buildings. I feel like the 9.7 feet that it currently is far enough away is within a margin of error. If there are just, a stepdad and his son building up a garage. So yes, I feel like it is in harmony.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
Yes, by the same rationale that Jill just described.
Okay. Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, so a yes for number 2. Number 3, is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say yes under living goals. Number 2, manage the impacts of growth and development in the county's rural character and natural resources. I think a building that size is allowed. It's just inches too close to the line.
Okay, yes from Rob. Jill,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4, is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control, yes or no?
I believe it is, with the minimal distance change and size. I think it's very reasonable.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 4. Number 5, is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner.
I think it is unique to the property in that there were several surveys done, and they both came out different. And when we're looking at 19 thousandths of an acre difference, plus about 4 inches difference on the side yard, I think that does make it a little unique that you'd have that many or several different surveys and they come out differently.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill,
Yes.
George,
Actually, I don't think it is, but I'm going to go with yes because it's such a small amount of distance.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob.
Just so I'm clear, these questions are just the fact that it's too close to the property line, not the size.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll vote yes.
Okay, Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 5. Number 6, will variance maintain the essential character of the locality?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say yes. It is rural out there, and it's not obstructing any access or anything like that.
Okay, yes from Rob. Jill,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 6. And then number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, I believe it does. Economic considerations are not a factor here.
Okay, yes from George. Jill,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 7. So all 7 questions being answered in the affirmative, we'd be looking for a motion to approve this variance request.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, motion
I'll second.
from Bonnie, second from Jill. All right, the remaining votes, George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and myself, I vote yes. So with that, the existing structure variance is approved. And so now we want to combine the next, okay, very good. Just making sure. Huh?
Mr. Chair, we were just looking for who did the closing of the public hearing. I believe it was Rob and Bonnie.
Yes.
Maybe not Rob. Rob's looking at me confused.
No.
Somebody closed the public hearing.
Mike,
did.
it was Mike.
And Bonnie. I
Yes.
knew it was this side.
I had it somewhere on my sheet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right, so this is for both of the rest of that, for the 20 by 28 foot and then that property area. All right, so number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning district in which the subject property is located. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, this is an R1 zoning district, and having an accessory structure is allowed.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
So that's a yes for that one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls. Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go with no on this one under the same as the previous one, nature goals, to ensure the reasonable and responsible use of the county's natural resources.
Okay. No
Reserve. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
done.
No, you're-
I'm done.
Okay. Jill?
I'm going to say that yes, it is in harmony. I feel like the size of the lot is within the error margin for if it's 0.99 or a 1 acre. So I feel like there's wiggle room there in that it would be in harmony. And then with regards to the distance from the property line, I feel like it makes sense to have the building in line. If you're a human on the in the area, you're not going to see the property line, but you will see the building itself. And having some kind of, angle of the building will look strange and not necessarily be noticeable by eye. Plus, the neighbor said that it was okay with them.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
I'm a no. I don't have a problem with the distance from the property line. What I do have a problem with, it doesn't meet the criteria of 1,200 square feet. And I didn't hear a good reason why he needed more than that.
Okay. No from George. Amy?
I'm a yes. There is support from the neighbors.
Okay. Bonnie?
I'm a yes because of the minimal amount, that it's less than what it needs to be for that amount.
Okay. Mike?
I'm a yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number two. Number three, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes. When you're looking at these minimal, extremely minimal differences, I don't think the comprehensive plan really was intended to punish people for it being this minimally different.
Okay. Yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie already answered. Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number three. Number four, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it is reasonable to add an addition to the accessory structure in his property. I believe it is reasonable to want to round up the 998 to 1 versus down to a 99. And I think it is reasonable to continue the building line of that shed.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number four. Number five, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that the rounding portion of the ordinance is not created by the landowner. The landowner did build the existing shed, but as we thought before, that is within the margin of error. So I believe it is unique to the property.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number five. Number six, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
I'm going to say yes by aligning the side yard, the side of the building with the building that's currently there is going to make a more appealing looking building. And this addition is on the back side of the garage and probably really won't be noticed by anybody in the neighborhood.
Okay. Yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I don't believe that economics were discussed.
Okay, yes from Jill. George,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Bonnie,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 7. So,
Mr. Chair, on number 5, I wish to change my position on that
Okay.
to a no.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. There are 7 questions being answered in the affirmative. Would be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Okay, I have a motion from Bonnie,
I'll second that motion.
second from Amy. Okay. Jill,
Yes.
George,
No.
okay. Amy, or you already had?
Yes.
Yep. We have Rob.
No.
Okay. And Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so with that, that variance request is approved. Any more questions, just please contact staff members from Environmental Services. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Good night.
All right, number 2 now, a request from Julie Pung and Jodine Lommel of Cold Spring from sections 5.12C and 10.211A2 and 10.211A3 of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to construct a roof and add screening to the existing 10-foot by 18-foot non-conforming deck that is less than 50 feet to the ordinary high water level and partly in the shore impact zone of a lake classified as recreational development. Said ordinance does not allow for an enclosed roof or screening alterations to a non-conforming deck that is less than 50 feet to the ordinary high water level. Partly in the shore impact zone of a lake classified as residential developments. And that address for that is in Wakefield Township, and that is 16515 Noss Lake Road in Cold Spring, Minnesota. And if I can get your name and address for the public record, please.
Hi, my name is Jodine Lommel. I live at 16515 Knaus Lake Circle in Cold Spring.
Okay, very good. Staff to your report, please. Yeah, I can just do a roll call if you want. Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes, I spoke to Jodine when I was there.
Okay. And Mike?
Yes.
And I was there as well, so that takes care of that.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The applicant currently own lots 2, 3, and 4, less the west 35 feet of lot 2 of Hassling's Addition on Knaus Lake in Wakefield Township. Hassling's Addition was platted in 1949. The tract contains 31,213 square feet of lot area per the survey provided by the applicants. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2016. There is an existing 2,044 square foot residential dwelling with attached garage and a 10-foot by 18-foot, 180 square foot deck that were constructed prior to the official controls in 1955 per the Stearns County Assessor's records. In 2001, a permit was issued for the deck to be replaced. There is also a 440 square foot accessory structure on the property that was allowed by variance, permitted, and constructed in 2003. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Knaus Lake, which is classified recreational development. Knaus is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients. The subsurface sewage treatment system on the property was permitted and installed in 2002 and certified compliant in August of 2023. The current impervious lot coverage on the property is 14.5%, and there will be no change with this request because they are asking to screen in the existing deck that is already counted as impervious. Wakefield Township, Sauk River Watershed District, Sauk River Chain of Lakes Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified. And I did receive one correspondence from Heidi Stahlberger, the Clerk and Zoning Administrator for Wakefield Township, 22295 Frost View Road, Cold Spring, Minnesota 56320. Wakefield Township has reviewed the variance request to screen the existing deck for Julie Pung and Jodine Lummel. Wakefield Township has no issue with this request with respect or impact on roads or infrastructure to the extent that the township has authority. The Wakefield Township Board and I am available to answer any questions the Board of Adjustment members may have for Wakefield Township regarding this request. And that is all that I have.
All right. Anything you want to say to the board?
So essentially, it's just putting a screen and a roof on it, and I appreciate those that were able to come out and look at it and see the 10 by 10 screened-in porch. That's pretty trashed. A lot of duct tape on it, but I really appreciate your consideration for this.
All right. Any questions for staff or the applicant from board members?
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Can I get a little bit background information on why we would not want to have an enclosed roof over a deck that exists if it doesn't change the impervious percentage?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, to answer that question, when we screen and when we roof a deck, it becomes part of the home and then can be used for building line purposes, whereas a deck itself is not used for building line. And so that's why there is a difference between screening it in.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add to that,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman? If I have a deck and it rains, that water is dispersed through all the cracks in the floor. It's spread out the square footage of that deck. If I put a roof on that, all that water is concentrated and coming off the front edge, correct?
That is correct as well.
And in this case, that's 48 feet from the lake.
So I have a question for staff. In the upper part of the request, it says that it's a non-conforming deck, right?
Nope, it was a legal non-conforming deck, meaning it was on the property prior to the official controls.
Okay.
Non-conforming meaning it's in the shore impact zone, and we don't allow structures in the shore impact zone. So the non-conformity is what's not meeting the requirements. So that's why it's considered a non-conforming. Correct.
Yeah, okay. That clears it up for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My comment on that too is it's 48 feet from the ordinary high water level. And this tract was platted in 49 and 55. Now that ordinary high water level, at that time, it was probably 50 feet. That high water level could have changed in history at that point in time. That's that's my
I guess
comment.
I can't answer that question, Mike, Commissioner, Board Member Prell. Excuse me there. Yeah, I don't know when the ordinary high water levels came into play, and maybe Shelley, maybe you can answer that. When was that in 72 when the shoreland standards came into play? That's when they first started probably tracking ordinary highs. So before that, there was no setbacks that were even required at all. So there was nothing to measure to because there was no standard at that point. So.
Any other questions or comments for staff or the applicant? Hearing and seeing none, anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request? Hearing and seeing none, looking for a motion and a second to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Motion from Amy.
I'll second it.
Second, all right, from George. All those in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion does carry. So now to the finding of facts with number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, the zoning district is R1, and it is allowed to have a deck, possibly even enclosed deck, in an R1 zoning district.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say no because they don't meet the requirements of the setback.
Okay, no from George. Jill?
I'm going to say yes. As staff was giving us background, the general purpose could impact sight lines, but looking at this lot compared to its 2 neighboring lots, sight lines would not, in my opinion, be impacted at all by covering up that deck. It's already kind of nestled into a corner of the building. So I think that yes, it would be in harmony.
Okay, yes from Jill. Bonnie?
I would agree.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
No, and I'm going to go with the Shoreland Overlay District. The purpose
Okay,
of the shore is to protect and enhance the quality of the surface waters by promoting wise utilization.
all right, Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go with no under nature goals number 1 and lakeshore water resources number 2. Or, I'm sorry, lakeshore living policies number 2. Encourage shoreline protection and restoration methods such as vegetative buffers.
Okay, no from Rob. Jill?
I will also be a no and add on the Lakeshore Living Policy number 6 for expanding mitigation requirements for projects requesting to vary from lake setbacks, but mitigation requirements have not been mentioned.
Okay. George?
No.
Bonnie?
And I'm going to say yes because, when you're looking at Lakeshore Living Policy number 6, it talks about mitigation, but I guess from some of our past training, we were told we're not supposed to consider mitigation until after we've made a yes or a no vote on the item itself. So mitigation shouldn't be a factor in saying yes or no to this.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Amy?
I'm also a yes.
Okay, Mike?
I'm a yes.
And I am a yes, so
Can
that's...
I just ask, so if your yes is against my number 6, but is there another reason that it does meet the comprehensive goals?
I'm going to just look at the minimal difference, and in living goals, supporting housing options that give people of all life stages and all economic means viable choices within their homes. And I think asking for a screened-in deck is a viable choice.
Okay, so I was a yes. So yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say yes. It's reasonable one, a screened-in porch.
Okay. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say yes. The deck is already there. We're just adding a screen porch to it.
Okay, Jill?
Yes, the deck was built before the ordinance came into place, so it is unique to the property.
Okay, George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
I'm going to say no based on our past training. You buy the problems. They bought the problems with the deck too close.
Okay, no from Rob. Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I don't believe that the locality will change at all if they put a roof over a deck that hardly anybody can see.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so a yes for number 6. And number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say yes. Economics weren't discussed.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that's a yes for number 7. All questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for a motion and a second to approve the variance request.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Motion from Amy?
Mr. Chairman, can we talk mitigation before that passes, or do we talk mitigation after it passes?
After.
After, yeah.
And
Okay.
Yep. I've got a motion, looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Second from Mike. The remaining votes. Jill?
I'm going to say no just because I wasn't convinced with the yes votes for number 3.
Okay. George?
Clarification, what are we voting on now?
Did the construction of the structure itself, so the roof and screen in the roof, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Mike? He already answered, yep. All right, so with all answers being in the affirmative, and I vote yes as well, that motion, the request is passed, and then now talking to mitigation.
When I did my site visit, I noticed that all the gutters run down towards the lake, come down the side of the house, point to the lake, 48 feet away. And now you're going to, the rainwater from that new roof is going to concentrate more. I think there should be some sort of buffer zone or mitigation prior to the lake to catch that rainwater.
You have the gutters running into a little rain garden.
I think with the lot coverage, the impervious lot coverage of being just 14.5, that's probably why there was not a review of having any mitigation for this one. So I think in the packet it does say on the second page that a condition must be directly related to and must bear a rough proportionality to the impact created by the variance. I don't know how confident I feel like adding a mitigation requirement to this one with as small of the addition of the roof will make to impervious to really make a difference. Just my opinion, though.
It's hard to tell from the photo, but it's a slope down to the water. There's nothing to slow that down between the pipes and the lake. And now we're going to concentrate more water on the lake side of the house to go downhill.
Just a question for staff. Then if we're trying to make a nexus between our mitigation and the project, would the mitigation then would be limited to like rain gutters on the new structure rather than looking at, rain gutters on other parts of the house?
I think all the options you've talked about so far could be nexused into what they're requesting. It is in the shore impact zone, so gutters, moving them away from the lake, gutters to rain barrels, gutters to, the other side of the property. I mean, it's going to be hard to get it to the other side of the property.
Because it slopes.
You could look at a buffer, you could look at all of those options.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'd be an easy fix with a rain gutter and a rain barrel or a little rain garden.
No,
You know,
I
it's,
agree. Plus, you can reuse it.
it's just a small addition.
It's certainly within the realm of your discretion. You might want to check with the applicant to see how they feel about that, just so you're understanding.
Would that be all right?
100% of the rain gutters are not going down to the lake. The front of the house does have one coming to the front, so it's not 100% of the gutters. And yeah, as far as responsible for the lake, and I am considering a buffer down by the lake with wildflowers or something like that to help the lake, because we have some weeds. So I understand what you're saying, Rob. I definitely do. As far as the gutters, we just put them on last year. So that was with the leaf guard. So there's really none of that crud going down anymore. Where that was in the past, there's a lot of the leaves and all that crud was going out, and that is no longer the case, at least coming from the gutters. So I'll leave it in your hands on what you want me to do or us to do, but that's how I feel.
Well, I think she's a willing participant already with her buffer, so I think
I find that pretty acceptable.
I find that very acceptable.
I have a question for staff. You have someone on staff now that specializes in that.
Yep, Nick Newman in our office does.
Okay.
And so I think what he would be looking for would be, would you guys prefer that it be native plants? Would you be okay with a no-mow buffer? Because there definitely is a difference between buffers and what, there's a cost involved with native plants. They're a little bit more expensive. If you're thinking a no-mow buffer, that would be something. And again, we would have to decide, what type of
Do you have a
width
preference?
would you be looking at? So they're 48 feet from the lake right now, and there's
And the
you
setback's
have some
50.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Just wondering if she could just work it out with staff.
Yeah, can't she work this out with staff? I mean, we're saying that, yes.
We've got an expert,
Yeah.
I would prefer not to have the cost, because we did look into that before when there were grants and such, but it's costly. I mean, I'm in it already for $3,000, and we haven't even gotten the variance. So it's pricey, no doubt, and I understand what you have to do. So to walk away and say I've got to put a buffer in by XYZ by the end of the year, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have more cost. A rain barrel, sure. I'll put a rain barrel in.
Again, for staff,
I'm fine with that.
can we make a motion that your specialists go out and meet with her and come up with ideas and whatever his suggestion is?
I think that's a little bit further from where we need you to be.
Okay.
So if in fact you want to say gutter that new portion and into a rain barrel so that it doesn't run into the water, that definitely is an excess to the request that's in front of you. No mow is easy with so many feet, but anything past that kind of language is going to get complicated. So we will try next month to have those mitigation options in front of you.
And you were right with the rain barrel, right?
And you would do a rain barrel?
I'm fine with that.
Rain barrel on one of, on the one where the roof is going up.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Is that all right with everybody?
Is that good?
I'm not okay with that, but I'm
Step in the right
probably
direction.
a lone person here because a rain barrel, there's no way to monitor it to see that it's dumped or done right. Whereas a no-mow it's there, it's there, it's gonna help, so that's my opinion.
You're going to use it. Why wouldn't you?
I don't know, maybe.
And it's rainwater, and it's got your nitrogens and all that in there, so it's going to be beneficial for your flowers and.
People get lazy. People get lazy. That's why they don't use them.
All right.
And a 50-gallon rain barrel fills up pretty quick.
It does, yeah.
You know, so as far as how much water it really controls.
I don't feel comfortable with it either. I don't feel like I'm enough of a professional to be able to know what impact even a rain barrel will have on what we're trying to impact.
So, this whole question, so can we make this variance approval contingent upon, I mean, a no-mow zone? Is that within our purview to do that?
That's how it works.
Okay, well, that's what I would propose as a no-mow zone.
How many feet from the lake?
What was that question?
How many feet from the lake? I'm assuming you mean, no, not mowing where?
So I don't know what the criteria is. If you put a no-mow zone, is it better to have it 20 feet from the shoreline, or is it better to have it 10 feet? I'm not an expert there, so I don't know.
Well, they do have rock riprap there that you can see from the photo. And so you would probably start from the rock riprap, because we're not going to make them tear the rock riprap out to put a no-mow in there.
Agree.
But it would be, you know, you could go 5 feet, you could go 10 feet. Again, that's kind of up to you if that's the route you want to go.
So I'm going to recommend 10 feet.
Is that
10 feet no mow, so that gives me,
My assumption is that you guys are still going to give them, like we've had in the past, you have your access area.
Yep.
So wherever you're accessing the lake,
That still remains.
you can still cut that. The no-mow would be, you know, probably, you know, like up in this area, wherever here's your access. Is that where you access the lake?
no, right in front of the
Right in
house.
front here?
Yeah.
So, you know, they're probably talking like a no-mow here and then up along here as well would be my thoughts. And then you choose where your access area is. That's kind of how they've worked in the past.
Well, the access area does vary because we have a lot of lakeshore, depending. So we have had the dock and everything off to kind of the right side or the top of the picture. But currently today, it's in the middle, coming down the steps from the deck.
I like the idea of a no-mow zone, but if we're asking for 10 feet on a something that's roughly 50 feet from the lake, that's along the no-mow zone, you're reducing their lawn or their recreational area by 20%. You know, that's a large, if we went with a 5-foot no-mow, and we're looking at a very small, relatively small addition, so we should really be looking at the amount of runoff that just that addition is causing. What would the mitigation be that would take care of just that, not looking at what the whole house, at least that's my thought, is we should be looking at just that amount.
I disagree with that. So I'm okay with a 5-foot no-mow zone, but now we've identified a problem, the runoff from the whole house. And why would we not try to mitigate that? Just focus on that one little portion. We're trying to improve the environment, improve
the no-mow 5 feet and have her put a rain barrel in too.
I don't care about the rain barrel. I don't believe it's
We're trying to do different
workable.
things here.
5, I'm okay with 5 foot. I'm okay with that.
So someone should make a motion if that's what you want.
Okay, I'll make a motion to require a 5-foot no-mow zone.
I'll second that.
okay? Votes for that. Jill,
No.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So with that extra necessity there, your variance is granted. So
who's going to come out and monitor that, or how does that?
I think just staff will kind of work with you on that and get that set up for you.
Staff that goes out to check on that. Right now, it's Cole Lowen. He'll go out and do those checks. But those conversations you can have with staff to make sure you know where your access points are, and that gets documented.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, item 3, and a request from Kelvin Olson of South Haven, Minnesota, from sections 5.1.2C and 6.21G and 10.211A of the Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to leave as constructed a 268 square foot deck ahead of the established building line and a 49 square foot lean-to addition, both attached to the non-conforming principal structure that is partly within the shore impact zone of Augusta Lake, classified as recreational development. To construct a 20-foot by 24-foot detached accessory structure that is less than 10 feet from the principal structure and less than 100 feet from the ordinary high water level of Augusta Lake. Also, to construct an 8-foot by 12-foot screen porch addition ahead of the established building line into the principal structure that is partly within the shore impact zone of Augusta Lake. Said ordinance does not allow for additions located partly within the shore impact zone and does not allow for accessory structures less than 100 feet landward of the ordinary high water level of a lake classified as recreational development and less than 10 feet from the principal structure. And the property address of this is 2343 Augusta Road, South Haven, Minnesota. And if I can get your names and address for the public record, please.
My name's Calvin Olson. I'm at 2343 Augusta Road, South Haven, Minnesota, 55382.
Okay.
Jack Schabel at 15751 35th Avenue, South Haven, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you very much. And staff to report.
Mr. Chair, do you want to take a roll call
Yes, I
of
will.
who was able to visit the site, please?
Absolutely. Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
No.
Rob?
Yes, and I spoke to Kelvin when I was there.
Okay. Mike?
And I also spoke with him.
Yes.
Okay. And I was there as well. I guess nobody wanted to talk to me. That's fine. Staff to your report. Thanks. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The applicant currently owns Lot 6 and the west half of Lot 5, Block 2 of Coe's Clearwater Augusta Passage on Augusta Lake in Fairhaven Township. Coe's Clearwater Augusta Passage was platted in 1954. The tract contains 8,380 square feet of lot area per the survey provided by the applicant. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicant purchased the property in 1989. There is an existing 616 square foot residential dwelling that was constructed prior to the official controls in 1960 per the Stearns County Assessor's records. There is a 268 square foot deck and a 49 square foot lean-to addition that were constructed in 1990 without a permit. There's also a 96 square foot accessory structure that was constructed in 1985. As part of the project, the applicant intends to raise the lowest floor level of the dwelling to the regulatory flood protection elevation and meet the fill requirements around the dwelling. The property is in the floodplain and shoreland overlay district for Augusta Lake, which is classified recreational development. Augusta is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients. The subsurface sewage treatment system consists of a holding tank that was recently permitted and installed in 2023. The current impervious lot coverage of the property is 17.9%. The proposed impervious lot coverage will be 23.1. Fairhaven Township Clearwater River Watershed District, Lake Augusta Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified of this request, and I have no correspondence with regards to this request.
All right. Thank you, Jamie. Anything you'd like to say to the board?
Well, when Rob was out there and Bonnie was out there, I have a screen house that is Menards is the tent one, and I just wanted to put a newer, better model up. And I was going to remove the stairs in the front, so that would be closer to the thing, and that's about it. I've just been wanting a garage.
Any questions from the board for staff or the applicant?
Just a question on clarification. So the proposal is to raise the building? What's that about?
0.3 of a foot off below the flood zone. So I have to raise the whole structure up to be above the flood zone.
So where that name is there, your name, that whole structure is going to be lifted up?
Yep. That's to get the regulator standards up for elevation for FEMA.
Okay, and then the new garage is that red, that right there, okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just would like to clarify. The lifting of the cabin can be done with the construction site permit, okay? So that's not part of this variance request, right, but that is also part of the project that he's going to be doing. So he's asking for a variance to leave this deck that was constructed in 1990. I don't think we can see, there it is. It works over here, there we go. So he's asking to leave this deck that was constructed without a permit. He's also asking to screen in this portion here, and then he's asking for this shed and to leave this lean-to portion on there. That was also done without a permit. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand what the request is? Okay.
I got a question for Mr. Olson. Is this your primary residence?
It is now, yes. I just retired in January.
And maybe you can head off a lot of discussion, but you were in the audience while we go through the 7 questions, and what makes your property so unique that we should grant you all these exceptions to the rules?
Well, look at the house next to me.
Yep.
But that's not a valid reason why we should grant the variance because someone else is out of compliance.
I understand that, but I just would like to get a garage built on there so I can have something to store my car.
I have a question for you. The decks and that, did you put those on there without a permit, or were they there prior to? Was it?
I put those on there myself without a permit because they weren't attached, and so I didn't think I needed a permit. But then they told me that if it was ground level, I wouldn't have needed a permit. So I'm 12, or was it 16 inches off the ground? 12 inches off the ground. I needed a permit, and I didn't know that at the time.
Any other questions? Do this in 2. I'm going to try. I got 3 here, but we'll see. Yeah. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this request? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the request?
Mr. Chair, I have a question for staff or the applicant. So with regards to the garage that you want to build, is there a place anywhere on this lot that he could build a garage and fit all the ordinances?
Madam Chair, members of the board, there's a 100-foot setback from the water, so that would put them out in this area here, so I would say no.
Okay, thank you.
I have another question for the staff or applicants. So the structure that I see in the upper right hand, what is that?
Must have took a picture when my granddaughter was visiting me, and that's their trailer. It's not there.
Okay.
It's not there today.
And then what's the thing on the upper left?
That's my shed. I was going to take that out of there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, nobody in the audience wishing to speak to this request. So what I have here, I have three options. Did you want to do it as three or?
Do we have to do the after the fact?
Yeah, that one. But
And then I would suggest.
could we combine the
just
rest?
doing the other two together?
Yeah.
They're kind of different.
Together and then do the shed separately?
I feel like the two after the facts can go together because they seem to be built in the same time period, but I feel like there could be different arguments for the covered deck and the garage.
Mr. Chair, we would also need to close the public hearing.
We'll get there.
I move to close the public hearing.
Motion from Jill.
I'll second it.
All right, second from George. All those in favor of closing public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So,
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Olson's contractor has a question or a statement.
So I have a question for the members. That was three separate variances they were looking for. I didn't get a chance to see exactly how they were written, but I'm assuming one is for the garage, one is for an after the fact, and one is for the screened-in deck.
Correct, yes.
And I guess my opinion would be if they were all set up separately, because, you know, in the opinion is if he got a screened-in deck, but you didn't want him to have the garage, if they're combined together, he'd be denied on everything. You know, his intent, I believe, was to apply for three separate things and have three separate potential outcomes.
We can do that. That's not a problem.
Yeah, and I see them as three really separate items.
Does he need to be on the record as name, address as a person?
He had put that in before as he's part of the, I think, you know, representative, and I think he'd be all right.
We have Mr. Schabel's address. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so then should we just start with that shower deck thing since?
Yeah, it should be the after the fact.
Yep. So to leave as constructed, Yep. All right, so number one for that is the proposed use allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
I would say yes, decks are allowed in this zoning district.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so that's a yes for number one. Number two is the variance in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say no under the 10.2 Shoreland Overlay District. Purpose of the Shoreland Overlay District is to protect and enhance the quality of surface water by promoting the wise utilization of public waters and related land resources.
Okay, no for Rob. Jill?
So I believe this question is about what part of the ordinance, the purpose and intent of the ordinance itself, not necessarily the comprehensive plan. So the purpose of the ordinances that we're looking at are that it's ahead of the building line, it's 45 feet from the ordinary high water level, and the principal structure is non-conforming such that it should not have allowed a lean-to addition. My understanding of the general purposes and intent of those controls is that we don't want to add on to non-conforming structures that are that close to a body of water. So those sound like the intent and official control. I believe that they've been there for almost 40 years, if I'm reading this right, where it looks like they were added in 1990, so 33 years ago. Are the county's benefits outweighed by the applicant's burden if the applicant were required to remove these items? I feel like the applicant's burden would be higher. They've been using this part of their property for 30 years. So I would say yes, because of the county's benefits would not necessarily be outweighed or would not outweigh the applicant's burden of removing it.
That was good work. George?
No.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes for the reason that the portion of the deck that is in front of the building line is a small portion. Part of that is stairs. I don't believe that all of that stairs would have been permitted, but a section of that stairs would have been permitted anyway because you're granted a 4-foot step anyway. So that would even reduce the amount of deck that is in front of the building line. So I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Yes from Bonnie. Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 2. Number 3 is the variance request consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say no under Lakeshore Living Policies number 2 and 3, Nature Goals number 1 and 3, and Water Resources Policy 1 and 2. And that small portion of the deck that's ahead of the building line, really irrelevant because the entire deck is illegal.
Okay. No from Rob. Jill?
I'm also going to say no under Lakeshore Living Policies number 1, where we want to cluster housing away from the shorelines using a conservation design approach.
Okay. No from Jill. George?
No.
Bonnie?
I'm still thinking.
Okay. Amy?
I'm a yes. I do think it falls under living goals number 3, support housing options that give people in blah, blah, blah. This deck has been here for 30 plus years. He's been using it. It's going to cost him money to get rid of it. So it's been there and it's been functional.
Mike?
I'm a yes with the same reason.
I'll be a yes as well for that. Take your time, Bonnie, no worries.
A question for staff before I answer. Is it permissible to put a caveat on it stating something like that if it were to be replaced, it then would need to have to come into compliance?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I do believe this deck is going to have to come off for them to lift the structure, number 1.
Okay.
So this is going to be put back on there. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay.
But the deck is going to have to come off to put their fill, to raise their structure, put their fill around the house, and then put the deck back on. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So,
Well, and he's trying to make it right for something that wasn't right.
If you're doing all that work, then we might as well stay behind the building line. Not that the whole deck has to disappear, but
What's he supposed to do? Cut it off?
yeah. I mean, you're not going to put the same old boards on. You're going to use new lumber or composite for the deck?
But isn't it a non-conforming structure? So if they remove the deck, then they would not be able to add a new one on without a variance?
that's why he's here.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, there is a building line, as we show on here. He would be allowed to do this portion right here and back from there with just a construction site permit, because that's where the building line is. So anything behind the building line can be done. It's this little portion that's making it non-conforming. So it's your guys' decision to decide, is that little portion okay, or is that little portion not okay?
And I have a question for the builder. If the deck were, if that section that's in front of the building line were removed, is there then room to add the other building section that he's proposing?
So members, I would be the excavator and the person
Oh, okay.
helping facilitate lifting the structure. And I believe the deck would lift with the house. You know, it wouldn't be tore down, it wouldn't be pulled aside, it would go up at the same time as the whole structure goes up. And new supports would be put under it, is my understanding. And as far as cutting the deck off in the building line, that wouldn't be in my expertise.
Okay, thank you.
This is a great opportunity to get it in compliance, since all this work is going to be done.
Mr. Chair, question for staff, just to clarify. I thought the fact that the building, the principal structure, is only 45 feet from the ordinary high water level, so that makes it non-conforming. But is that, am I misunderstanding that?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I guess I don't know what you're asking with that question. It is, yes, it is a legal, non-conforming structure. You guys were talking about the deck, right? And so with that legal non-conforming structure, that doesn't mean you can't add a deck. It just means that if you're going to add something, it needs to meet the requirements. And so the requirements would say that you could add this deck. I don't know why this doesn't show up. You can add this deck behind this green line, and it would be meeting the building line setback. And so the lake setback would be met by that being constructed there.
Okay, I think my misunderstanding was that if it's a legal non-conforming structure, because it's non-conforming, that means they could not add a deck to it. But it sounds like that's not correct.
That is not correct.
All right,
you
thank
can
you.
add things to it, but what you are proposing to add has to meet the standards of the ordinance. If that makes sense? Yes.
And then the portion that is extending in where it's not supposed to be, if that was just patio pavers or cement, it's allowed. So to me, it's a moot point. It's just a little piece.
As long as it's not more than 12 inches off the ground,
Yeah.
we consider it to be a patio and does not need to have a permit and does not require the standards to be imposed on it or the setbacks imposed on it.
My understanding is just the stairs is the only part of the non-conforming with that green line.
But that part is getting lifted up.
No, that I was going to remove those stairs if I put the screen house on there.
Yeah, I mean, if that's all that is the stairs portion and you're going to remove that, I guess, I don't know, that looks like deck to me, but I guess.
So Mr. Chair, can we revisit? So we're at number 3 and we've got 6 votes and we're waiting for 1 vote on number 3.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And can you tell me what's the vote on that so far?
Jill, no.
3-3.
Yep. Doesn't use the names, but
Yep.
no pressure.
I'm going to say yes for now.
Okay. Yes, for number 3. Number 4 is the property owner proposing to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by an official control.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I think it is reasonable to want to continue to use a deck and a lean-to that you've been using for over 30 years.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so a yes for number 4. Number 5 is the plight of the landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner.
Mr. Chairman, no, all the lots around there are small, so that's, the size of the lot is not unique. And the fact that the deck is out in front of the building line, it was put there by the landowner.
Okay, no from Rob. Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
No.
Amy?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay. And I am a no. So, no for number 5. Number 6, will the variance maintain the essential character of the locality? Yes or no?
Changing the deck will not change the character of that locality.
Okay.
So it's a yes.
Yep. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes. Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
And a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
I'm gonna say yeah. I mean, he's already hired an excavator to help lift everything and put the fill and everything in there, so I mean, that does cost money.
And I'm going to say yes for the reason that it's not going to make any additional, well, I can't say any, but a significant additional because, as you said, it's going to have to be raised and moved, or raised somewhat already.
Yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes for number 7, so that's a yes. Number 5 was a no, right? Okay. So because of that, we need to look for a motion to deny that, leaving that construction as it is.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I move that we deny leaving the deck and the lean-to.
Okay, a motion from Jill.
I'll second that.
Okay, second from George. All right. Bonnie?
Just a clarification, when they're talking about the lean-to, they're talking about that section that was added for the cover for the wood?
Yeah.
Is that what?
I think.
I believe there's a deck on there as well.
Oh.
It's this back area here.
Yeah. Is there a way to separate those two on a vote or not?
I don't know.
Yeah, we could go ahead and do the deck differently than the lean-to.
Yeah, okay.
Because I have no problem at all. with the
Just
lean-to
more
the way it
voting.
is.
That's what, I kind of thought that's what we were dealing with, is just that deck part, not that other lean-to part.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He asked for 3 votes.
Well, yeah,
But that's part of the existing.
So the after the fact are these two things that are in black, this area and this area. If you all believed you were just voting on the deck, then that's what we're going to call this, the deck. Then you have to discuss this piece here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
That's what I would like
that's
to
what
do.
I would like
Yep,
to
that's
do,
fine.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to change my motion to be just about the deck.
Okay, just for the deck. This part is just for the deck. Okay. Is vote still the same for this for the? Okay.
Got it. You're okay.
Bonnie?
And the motion is to deny, yes.
Yes. Okay. Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
No.
Okay, and I am a no, but that motion passes for the denial of the deck. And now moving to the lean-to structure, correct? For votes on this.
So that's the front part.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Correct.
And motion to deny that as well? Or
No,
do we
I
want to
think
change
make a
that?
new
We can change,
motion.
yeah, we can change whatever.
Well, do we need to do a second set of findings then for that?
I think if you want to, I think we should just do a second set of findings for that.
Okay.
I'll just use the one from earlier that I didn't use with Hanson, and I'll just, for voting.
That'll be fine.
Okay.
And I'm just going to write lean-to so I know which one it is.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the applicant
Yes,
a question?
yep, go ahead.
Mr. Olson, when you raise the house up, are you going to take that lean-to with it? Okay.
So for the lean-to, after the fact findings, Jacob, you want to go through that?
Yes. Making myself organized here, sorry.
You're good.
Both are findings of fact again, correct? Okay. So again, this is just for that lean-to, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
I would say yes, additions to homes in this area are allowed.
Okay. Yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 1 for that one. The variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Just to clarify, what is the lean to use for? What's it covering?
Wood, I think, right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, with the lean-to, really the only reason then we'd be looking at it is because it was unpermitted when it was put there.
Correct.
It meets setbacks,
Right.
But
there's
keep in-
not a problem with it, I believe.
So it was considered a home addition,
Okay?
and now we're talking about that structure, so it's an expansion of the legal nonconformity.
Non-conforming
So it
structure.
can't just be issued because that structure is in the shore impact
Right.
zone
Which is why you're
without
doing the variance.
having a variance to
Right.
do it. And so
Right.
that's why it's
In front of you.
it's in front of you
Front
today.
of you.
Does that make sense?
But it's
Does
not
everybody
because it
understand
doesn't
that?
meet setbacks from the
Correct.
lake or the side yards.
Correct.
Yeah.
Where a deck is different than a home addition.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes. I do think it falls under living goals number 3.
Yes from Amy. Jill?
So if this is an addition to a legal non-conforming principal structure, and the intent of the official controls is that legal non-conforming principal structures are not allowed additions, because we want, if the structure is not usable in its state, we would prefer that it's rebuilt further away from the water, and meets the ordinances. So I'm going to say no, I don't think that adding this lean-to meets the general purposes and intent of the official control.
Okay. No from Jill. George?
No.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes because it's away from the building line. It's away from the lake.
Okay. Yes from Bonnie. Rob?
No, it's in addition to a non-conforming structure.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes, so yes for number 2. The variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Mike Pearl, I'd say yes, living goals number 3.
All right, Jill?
I'm going to say no under Lakeshore Living Policies number 3, where we want to discourage the creation of impervious surface in nearshore areas.
Okay.
But is impervious surface, was that an issue?
I don't know if that was. I don't think.
No, it wouldn't have been. Yeah.
Oh, sure. George?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, I do believe it falls under living goals number 3 as well.
Rob?
No, it's not living space. It's just attached to the
But it's
non-conforming
creating
structure.
a safe environment by not having wood laying all over the place.
And I'm a yes, so that would be a yes
It's in a
for number
confined
3.
area.
Correct.
Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, I believe having that attachment onto the home is a reasonable use.
Okay, yes for George. Jill?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner.
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, no, it's created by the landowner.
Yep. No from George. Jill?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Okay, Amy?
No.
Rob?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. But that is, so that's a no for number 5, I believe, if I can do math.
Right.
Number 6, the variance if granted is, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
It's not going to change it. It's going to leave it the same way it's looked for 30 years.
All right, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes because by removing it, then we would probably be having a negative effect because then you'd be having wood stacked out in the open and more clutter maybe on the yard.
Okay, Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
I'm going to say yes because I think the need for the variance is a use issue rather than a economic issue.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
So that's a yes for number 7. And again, number 5 was a no, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So we would have to look for that as well for a motion to deny that variance request.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I move that we deny the variance request for the lean-to.
Okay, motion from Jill,
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
second from Rob. Remaining votes, George,
Yes, to deny.
Bonnie,
No.
Amy,
No.
Rob,
Yes.
Mike,
No.
and I'm a no. Motion does not pass to deny.
I'd like to ask the board members that voted no on number 5 to clarify why they think it should still pass.
And those members that voted no on number 5 were Jill, George, Amy, and Rob voted no. And as it was created by the landowner stated, and then Bonnie, Jake, and Mike voted in favor, would have wanted to.
Like, I understand, like, in my heart, looking at this, I'd be like, yeah, sure, go for it. It doesn't matter. But legally, we're required to answer these 7 questions. And even if we think, yes, it's fine, but we need to have a legal reason why to say yes. And right now, we do not have a legal reason to say yes. We have, because so many people voted no on number 5, we have a legal reason to say no.
It was created by the property owner.
So if you as a board do not feel that you want to change number 5, then you need to go back to reconsider your motion to deny. Because right now it's the other direction.
Take number 5 out of there.
No, we can't do
And we
that.
cannot remove number 5, it's a requirement of statute.
But it is a factual thing that it was created by the landowner.
The only thing that I can say about number 5 is because this is after the fact findings, we do have A, B, C, D, and E. So should we go over those together to say,
Good idea.
are those good answers for changing our vote on number 5?
Okay.
All right.
So if we look at letter A, did he act in good faith and attempt to comply with the ordinance? We know he built it without a permit. So in my mind, I feel like that would be a no.
I agree with that rationale.
Did the applicant make a substantial investment? Yes, because he completed the construction. Is the construction completed? Yes. Are there similar structures in the area? Probably. Does the county's benefits outweigh the applicant's burden?
Personally, I think the county's benefits are not outweighed. The county has the authority and the job, so to speak, to protect the lakes of Stearns County. And this being in the shore impact zone or the shoreland overlay district, we're not doing that.
But it's also in front of the house too.
I would agree if it was something that was done recently, but it's not. It's been there.
It's been there.
I'm thinking that's.
It's a safety issue to me because, well, and not only that, I mean, if you're burning wood, there's elements, you can't burn wet wood. I mean, it just is not possible.
Let's be honest, if I
So
live
what you're
there, I'd
saying
fall
is
and die.
it's a want and not a need.
But at the
I don't
same
think
time,
safety is a want.
I think safety is a need. I mean, there could be little kids running around. You want them running around wood piles and tripping and falling and breaking items.
And on item A, I do believe that he did act in good faith, and maybe he didn't comply with the ordinance, but way back then, what was the views?
And at the time, I'm guessing you thought you were doing the right thing.
And if they're saying, if the justification is that it's the benefit to the county, when we look at this, there isn't an impervious issue.
No, there's not.
So that can't be used as a means of saying that it would benefit the county. And I think that was one of the statements.
Mm-hmm. So we've given our definitive reasons.
We have, so does anybody under number 5 that voted no, Jill, George, Amy, Rob, want to change that from no to yes based on the review of the criteria for after the fact findings?
I will change my vote to no to yes from the after the fact findings here going through A through D.
Okay.
So then that switches it.
And then with that, I would like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. All right, motion to approve from Mike. Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Second from Amy. Okay. Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy is a yes, Mike's a yes, and I am a yes.
Do I get to vote?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm kidding. Of course you do. I was doing I cannot read my writing. That's what you get for making me write things out 7 times. No. Rob, of course you get a vote.
Before I do, I'm going to read section State Statute 394.27. The Board of Adjustment shall have the exclusive power to order the issuance of variances from the requirements of any official control, including restrictions placed on nonconformities. Variances shall only be permitted when they are in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the official control and when the variances are consistent with the comprehensive plan. My vote is no.
Okay. But with the votes prevailing, this variance for the half, the lean-to half is approved. So do you want to go to the deck or the garage first? Does it really matter?
Well, the deck was denied for that portion.
Yep.
And now the lean-to was approved. Now the next part is garage and what's the other?
Screen porch.
And the screen porch.
Yeah, that's what I just said on this.
But
So if
I'd like to do the garage and the screen porch separately.
Oh, yeah,
I
we will.
agree.
If these are two, yep, these are two
All right.
different ones. So garage first, deck first, what?
let's do the deck. My question of the deck is if we deny that already, is that gonna change the?
Screen porch.
Yes.
A screen
Okay,
porch, is that?
just gotta keep it in my
And
head.
I'd maybe like to hear from the applicant, as far as what effect not, of having to back the deck off will have on the screen porch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that may make it a moot issue.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But he said he was just gonna cut them at the stairs, right? The
But I'm
deck-
just talking about, if you looked at the diagrams of what he was building, is that going to fit on there now?
It's over the line.
It's over the line.
Yeah.
If the applicant has to remove that deck, he can just put it into a cement patio and move the screen porch behind the green line, and he's good to go with whatever he wants.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but
Right.
the size of the screen porch that he was, or screen deck.
If he removed enough of the deck, he can move the screen porch back behind the setback line.
To remove the deck. back
So
behind
should
the
we give them a few minutes to think about that?
It's up to you.
Yeah. Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
All right, 5-minute recess.
So this is what is.
No, I actually do have.
eat it practically.
Right? Can you hear me?
All right, perfect. So what are your thoughts or?
Well, we thought we could put a 8x10 on there instead of 8x12.
Okay.
That would.
That'd take care of
That would take care of it then.
That would be behind the building line.
Yep, so we wouldn't even have to address that issue.
It still needs a variance because it's in a home addition
Yep, okay.
in the shore impact zone, right?
Sure.
It's not a deck anymore, it's now a screen porch, and so it's considered a home addition. Again, it comes down to that same question you guys had earlier. That can alter the building line of surrounding property. So that's why it still needs the variance. So, but instead of it being 8x12, it will have to be 8x10 to be behind that building line.
But if you look at the neighbor, they're significantly past
Look
that
at the
too,
neighbor, they're
correct?
significantly past that building line.
It doesn't matter. We don't use that neighbor's house. We use the 50-foot mark on the property line on that one because we can't use structures that are in the shore impact zone.
To establish the building.
Sure, no,
Establish
I
a building
understand
line.
that, but I'm.
So in this scenario, the addition of the porch really doesn't affect the building line because it's in the shore impact zone and we can't use it anyways. You guys should know that. That might affect your voting moving forward. Okay? Does anybody have any other questions to this piece of the request?
Okay, so it's gonna be an 8x10 structure.
Yep.
So we'd have to make sure we specify that.
Correct, yeah. So just a note administratively, and for this, it is 8x10, not an 8x12. So
Correct.
if that changes.
And you will also be striking out the section where it says ahead of the established building line. Because it's going to be behind the building line. So it's just basically to add onto a principal structure that is partly within the shore impact zone.
Okay.
Okay? Makes sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm. All right, so.
And that too? Okay.
Okay. Number one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, R1 zoning districts do allow a screen porch addition to primary residence homes.
Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that would be a yes for number one. Number two, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intents of the official controls.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say no because I believe the intent of the official control is for non-conforming structures to eventually be phased out, not to be added onto.
Okay. No from Jill. George?
I agree with that rationale, no.
Okay. Bonnie?
Come back around to me.
Okay. Amy?
Reason here.
Okay. Rob? Mike?
Yes.
Okay. I got to think about this too.
Can I hear from Mike on why it's a yes, please?
The length of time it's, other stuff has been there and conformity with the neighborhood, I don't think we're out of line.
But they're building a new one, so it hasn't been there.
Well, yeah, the rest of it has. I don't think the request is out of line.
We'll be replacing.
Because it isn't something new. That we're actually going smaller, and there was something there that we're replacing, and to me, they're bending over backwards to try to come into harmony with it.
Mr. Chair, I mean, yes. I mean, I guess looking at the property, the neighbor next door, I mean, it's in harmony with the building line. It's meeting the setback there. Obviously, there's other homes there that don't.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes for the reason that they're reducing the impact that is currently being used.
And I speak for the same reason. They're making good faith effort to be a little closer to that. So I'm a yes. So yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan. Yes or no?
Oh, I had that one too.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say no under lakeshore living policies where we want to discourage the alteration of natural shorelands and the creation of impervious surface in nearshore areas.
Yep. No from Jill. George?
No.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes for living goals number 3 because we're making it possible for, it says give people of all life stages and economic means viable choices.
Okay. So yes from Bonnie. Amy?
And I'm also a yes. I agree with Bonnie on the living goals number 3.
Mike?
Also.
And Rob?
I'm going to say no under nature goals number 3.
Number 3, okay. And I am a yes, so that would be a yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. It's reasonable to want a deck.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, it's a no. It's due to the landowner, the issue.
Okay, no from George. Jill?
I'm going to say, yes, it's unique to the property due to the fact that so much of the property is too close to the water anyways. So it is unique to the property.
Okay, yes from Jill. Bonnie?
I'll agree with Jill.
Amy?
I'm a yes.
Rob?
No.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yeah. Other homes in the area have decks.
It's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes because he's replacing something that's currently there.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes. I believe economics were discussed.
All right, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George? Yes. Bonnie? Yes. Rob? Yes. Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes, that's a yes for number 7. So for number 7, or for all these have been answered in the affirmative, and again, this is that screened-in porch addition, just to be specific. We'd look for,
Specific,
and yes, and yep, for the 8 by 10 to have that into the area that's partly within the shore impact zone, correct? Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the 8 by 10 screen-in porch addition.
Okay, a motion from Amy.
I'll second.
Second from Mike. Remaining votes, Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
No.
And I am a yes. So the motion for the screened-in porch, the 8 by 10 screened-in porch, does now pass. So the final piece of this, the other request, is the garage that we would be looking at here, the 20 by 24 foot detached. So number 1 of that one, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, R1 zoning districts do allow accessory structure.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
And can I just, since we've had so many different
Yeah.
things here, just clarification from the staff as to for the garage, what is the major issue there?
Would it be the
So it is to construct a detached accessory structure that is 4 feet from a principal structure
Okay,
and 77 feet from the ordinary high water level. So
Okay.
from a garage or a detached garage to a home, it needs to be 10, that's the standard.
Mhm.
And then for the lake setback, it's 100 feet. The building line does not apply to accessory structures.
Right.
Okay.
And one more question, is there, I'm guessing the answer is no, but there's no place on this property that you could move that to, that you wouldn't need a variance?
They already have a variance from the township from the road setback. And so.
But that's for a
they're-
specific distance?
Yeah, that's for a specific distance that structure is currently at right now.
All right, so if we,
So there is
There-
not
there's no
room
place to
meet
move it
the
anywhere
100-foot
else.
and the road setback, correct.
Questions for staff. So this is the detached accessory structure, so it's 4 feet from the principal structure. How would this change if it was attached?
If it were attached, there's no setback, obviously, because
Right.
it's an attached garage. So it would need to, again, we would be here asking for a variance again, because we have a structure in the shore impact zone, and that would be in addition to it, right? So it would need a variance even if you wanted to attach it,
Okay, thank you.
but that is an option. And it would just be that one, because the structure, that addition, if it were an attached garage, would be behind the building line, right? So it would only need the addition to a structure in the shore impact zone, kind of like the lean-to just had.
and then if we can ask the applicant, what made him choose an unattached accessory building versus an attached?
Economics, because I would have to put footings and everything
Okay.
down.
That makes sense.
All right, for the remaining votes for number 1, Amy?
I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, okay. Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah.
And I'm a yes, so that would be a yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say yes because they are moving that garage as far away from the body of water as they can, and they got the variance from the township in order to be as close to the road as they are. So I think they really are trying to be as far away as possible and meet with the intent of the official control.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I am yes. Living goals number 3, it's supporting the housing options. It's economical for them.
Okay. Jill?
I'm going to say yes with Lakeshore Living Policies number 1, where they're clustering housing away from the shorelines. So they're trying to cluster this garage away from the shoreline.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
I'm going to say no under water resources number 1, adhere to adopted plans and regulations that maintain, restore, and enhance the county's water resources.
Okay.
Can I just hear your thoughts on that?
The setback in the shoreland overlay district is to protect the water. We're within 77 feet of the water, where the official requirements are 100 feet.
Okay, Mike?
I'm a yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Mike Pearl, I'd like to say yes. I think he's doing more, at least 100% of what he can do.
Okay, yes from Mike. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes, it's reasonable in Minnesota to want to have a garage on your full-time residence.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's a yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. Well, he's pretty much walled in. He can't have many other options.
Right.
Unless, attached, but.
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes due to the fact that to be 100 feet away from the shoreline would be off of his property.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yes. And I'm a yes. That's a yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. Other homes have garages, and I also, the township has no issues with it.
Okay, yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So that's a yes for number 6. The need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Well, economics were mentioned, but it's the feasibility of actually having a garage. She has no other options,
Right.
in that area. So I would say yes. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
All right, and so we have all 7 questions answered in the affirmative. Looking for a motion to approve that variance request.
I'll move to approve.
A motion from Bonnie,
I'll second it.
second from George. Okay, Jill,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Rob,
Yeah.
Mike,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. So the variance request for a garage is granted. Any other questions, please contact staff during regular business hours. Thank you. And so for this continuance, do we need to vote on that, or is that just kind of a matter of fact?
I think you should just mention it.
Okay, yeah, the Klopaki.
Agenda item number 4
Yep.
has been
Yep, they've
continued.
requested that continue to our October meeting, so we will not be hearing that one this evening. So we will then move on to our next item here. Yeah. A request from Brad and Christy Kirchhoff of Sauk Center, Minnesota, from sections 5.12C and 10.211A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to replace and expand, a non-conforming deck that is wholly in the shore impact zone ahead of the established building line and less than 50 feet from the ordinary high water level of Sauk Lake classified recreational development. Said ordinance does not allow additions or alterations to a non-conforming structure that is wholly in the shore impact zone ahead of the building line and less than 50 feet away from the ordinary high water level of a lake classified recreational development. The affected property, lots 26 and 27 of Vogel's Shady Point in Sauk Center Township, and the address for that is 40839 Sauk Lake Road, Sauk Center, Minnesota. And if I can get your name and address for the book record, please.
Yep, Brad Kirchhoff, 908 Lilac Drive, Sauk Center, Minnesota.
Okay, thank you very much. And staff to your report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board.
Yep, I'll do the roll call. Jill.
No.
George.
No.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes, and like to put on record, met with.
Rob.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yes, and I also attended the township meeting on the same subject last night.
And I was there, but nobody talked to me because evidently people hate me. So, staff to your report.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the applicants currently own lots 26 and 27 of Vogel's Shady Point on Sauk Lake in Sauk Center Township. Vogel's Shady Point was platted in 1948. The tract contains 16,860 square feet in lot area per the survey provided by the applicants. The property is in the R1 zoning district. The applicants purchased the property in 2022. There is an existing 1,012 square foot residential dwelling and a 279 square foot deck that were constructed prior to the official controls in 1960 per the Stearns County Assessor's records. There is an existing 900 square feet detached garage that was permitted and constructed in 2002. The property is in the Shoreland Overlay District of Sauk Lake, which is classified recreational development. Sauk is on the list of impaired waters for nutrients and mercury in fish tissue. The subsurface sewage treatment system on the property was permitted and installed in 1995 and certified compliant in 2022. The current impervious lot coverage of the property is 28%. The proposed impervious lot coverage will be reduced to 25% per this request. An alternative to the request would be to replace the existing 279 square foot deck that was constructed prior to the official controls without expansion. Sauk Center Township, Sauk River Watershed District, Big Sauk Lake Association, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and property owners within 500 feet have been notified. And we do have a few correspondence that came in today on this one as well. The first one is from Missy Shermers, the Sauk Center Township Clerk. The township met tonight, meaning last night, and Brad Kirchhoff was on the agenda. His 10-foot side yard setback variance to the east was approved to construct the deck. Thank you. The second one is from Ray Malley at 40805 Sauk Lake Road, Sauk Center, Minnesota 56378. This is Ray Malley. My neighbor Brad is applying for a variance. I'd like to say, for the short time I've known him, very nice guy. What he is trying to do, in my mind, will not affect the lake shore. He is trying to help his family that are in wheelchairs to be able to enjoy the lake. With that being said, I have no problem with what he is asking. Thank you. And the last one that I have is from a Pete Uppus at 40915 Sauk Lake Road, Sauk Center, Minnesota 56378. Good morning. I'm just sending this to confirm we got notification about our neighbor's project. He would like to take care of and have no issues with what they would like to do to improve what is there now. Thank you. Looking forward to a positive improvement. And that is it for correspondence.
All right, anything you would wish to say to the board?
Yeah, I actually have a number of things. I do have a handout that I'd like to provide to the board as well. Yep. And I did give staff one also. And then I'll kind of go through my notes if you don't mind. Sure.
Brandon wants to get up anyway.
Thank you. All right. Well, first, just let me say a quick thank you. I know this has been a process. I've had the opportunity to work with Jamie and Shelley and other staff here. And as you stated earlier, that we started to take a look at what was it going to take to replace the deck that's currently on the cabin that we purchased last year. And through a lot of conversations with neighbors and Jamie working hard, we come to the determination that the deck has been on long prior to 1960. So the current deck certainly has had its use. I painted it last year just so that it wasn't such an eyesore. That's why it looks so nice and pretty from the top side. However, it's really dysfunctional and really breaking away on the underneath. So it definitely needs to be replaced. The handouts that I provided you are really just similar to the information that you received in the packet in the application. I just wanted to kind of give it to you in a way that it's a little bit easier for me to explain as to what I'm doing. So the drawing that I've got listed that's on and my apologies, it's on trout paper, but on that is specific to what's there and what I'm trying to do. And what I'm trying to accomplish is two things. I'm really trying to make a deck that is handicapped accessible, as both of my parents are in their 80s and require wheelchairs and are handicapped. So in order for them to enjoy the cabin and the deck, I would like to take a step out, which is in the center of the deck, which you can see in the pictures. Also on the south side, I will call of the cabin or the lake side,
It is currently 5 feet 4 inches, so 54 inches, and I would like to add 8 inches and make it 6 feet. 8 inches don't sound like a lot, but when you have a chair and a wheelchair and or a walker, in all honesty, 8 inches is more than you think. So I want to make it 6 feet out. And then, being I am doing the reconstruction, back in 2002, which you have a copy of the permit, we received a 10-foot side setback easement from the township, so that when the excuse me, let me slow down, a 10-foot side setback when the garage was built, okay? Because it's got a 20-foot, the township requires a 20-foot side setback. So we were granted a 10-foot. If you look in there, it says 10 feet from the side. And so if I get the 2 feet east of additional to my deck, I would be consistent with the 10-foot side setback, which is what the garage is. So I'm trying to make it consistent with what's there. Again, a couple things. Obviously, I don't believe that the variance is a big ask. It's more to replace and make something usable. As you can see again in that drawing, it's really cut up. I think if that's the best way, that's kind of how I explained it to Amy when she was there, is it's cut up. It's probably was great in 1970 or 60, and in all honesty, I think it was put in 2 different pieces. I think they did the south side first, and then they added the east side, which is why it wasn't never squared off, if that makes sense. So it was really, I think it's been pieced together for years. So moving on, I mean, that's the reasoning for the deck. How does it impact the, Sauk Lake? And I know it certainly is your guys' desire. I can tell by your conversations tonight and what we ask of everybody when it comes to owning lake property is to have minimum impact to the waters and runoff and certainly pervious coverage. I did not know, but after I had it surveyed, I'm currently at 28% coverage. Didn't even know that. So in my conversations with Jamie and staff, it's like, okay, what do I got to do to get below 28%, or do I have to ask for a variance for the impervious coverage as well? I chose to remove some things, make some significant differences to the lot so that I could meet the 25% rather than ask for an additional variance of the impervious coverage. So I would be looking to remove the fire pit, which is colored in yellow on that drawing I gave you, as well as there's another deck right down, almost on the water, right next to the water. I would be removing that also. Apologize, I just want to get through my notes to make sure I don't miss anything here. There was read into the comments earlier that my neighbors had, responded, and those 2 neighbors that responded, the Malleys and the Uppuses, are actually 2 homes outside of my real close neighbors. The Fishers that are just to the west of me are both in, Edith just turned 100 and they're both elderly, and so we just, many of you may know Tom and Edith. So he said, Brad, I have absolutely no issues with it. Hopefully you're granted. And then I talked with the Millers, Julian and Judy, who are on the other side of me, which is the east side, which is actually the property, which is kind of on the side of the deck. And they stated the same thing, that they had no issues with it in regards to this. So I have spoken with all of my neighbors to make sure that everybody was good with it. The septic was certified. Again, I'm attempting to make the impact to the lake better, certainly not worse, and I'm hopeful that you guys will support that.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board members to staff or the applicant?
The only comment I have, the drawings don't do justice. The pictures that were shown with the right there. That's what we're here for. This is what we call the Board of Adjustment. I think what he's asking for here is a great improvement with him removing the other stuff for the impervious coverage. I think he's well within following the.
When you look at
the
that
goals.
too, and a lot of our goals are, you know, safety and accessibility and enjoyment of the lake, and having something be handicap accessible makes that easier for everyone to enjoy that quality of life. So that's also something we look at in our goals. So just something to keep in mind as well.
And I think removing the deck and fire pit will be
I think that helps.
non-eyesore.
I have a question for staff. You read a letter from the township that said they're okay with the setback. Do they have authority? I thought the county sets the setback standards.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, the county ordinance is adopted by Sauk Center Township. They do have the ability to be more restrictive, but they can't be less restrictive. So the townships choose to be 20-foot setback from a structure to a property line. And so he had to go to the township to get the variance to be the 10-foot, which meets the county ordinance, but he did get that variance last night.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yep.
Jill DeLong, question for staff. Is there any kind of ordinance or concession for replacing existing structures with those that are ADA compliant?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the state statute that we refer to does not talk about accessibility in it at all. So I would say no.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, they are allowed to replace as is. And the minimum we have is 4 feet for a walkway, which meets the ADA requirement. So just if that's just a part of as a walkway, 4 feet is the minimum standard. But this is a deck, but they can replace that deck as is. So the request is to add additional 6 inches to that waterward side.
To be fair,
And
though,
then-
the minimum of an ADA is not always fantastic either.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm just saying
No, I'm just
what
pointing that
right, what we have is 4 feet as a walkway, which is part of what we do. That's,
Yep.
Is it a walkway, is it a deck? That's a different question for your purposes, so.
And as far as being ADA required, that is not necessarily for private residences.
Correct, ours is for commercial purposes.
Point, I know for a fact there are requirements on a deck for railing for ADA compliance. It has to be a continuous rail. You can't go up a stairway and take your hand off and go where the railing is connected to. It's got to be continuous. So there are requirements. I don't think that factors into what we're talking about here tonight.
Good point.
I just consider this more to be about, living life, the lifestyle on the lake and enjoying the amenities that they have on Sauk Lake. That's just my opinion. Any other questions?
Well, I do. I just so I have it correct. If he can replace the deck, and can he elevate? He can elevate it so it's all on the same level.
That is correct.
Without expanding, but he can
Without
bring the
expansion
low
of
part up.
The usable space, it can be leveled so it's all one level. So the sections where you see that they're not leveled there on the thing, those can be used or leveled so that it's all the same level as part of the replacement statute.
Any other questions or comments?
I guess just my greatest concern is that this is closer to the lake than really anything we've been discussing, so far tonight. It's or it's a lot closer than we, typically are asked to give a variance for.
But I get that. And it's also nice, though, that they did remove that, pretty much that deck that's right off the lake. That would be my greatest
and the
concern at this
fire
point, to
pit,
be
I
honest.
mean, those are, it just makes you wonder why they built houses as close as they did back then.
The 40s, they probably did whatever they wanted.
Everybody, who wouldn't want to be able to walk out your door and have the lake right there? That's why they built them that way.
The good old days, I guess.
Yeah.
You all wouldn't have a job, I suppose, if that were still the same. So, good for you. Any other questions or comments? With that, this seems crazy, but I am required by state statute to ask 3 times if there's anyone wishing to speak to this variance request. So if anybody, whatever, it's free to do. But is there anyone wishing to speak to this variance request? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request? Hearing and seeing none, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion from Amy.
I'll second.
Second from George. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Motion carries. So now we are moving to our finding of facts. Number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, decks are allowed in R1 zoning.
Okay. Yes from Amy. Jill?
Sorry, Brenda.
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe that the intent of the official control for non-conforming structures are that we'd prefer them to go away versus expand them. However, in this case, the expansion is solely on making it more accessible for the residents. So I believe that it is in harmony, as it is such a minimal expansion.
Okay, yes from Jill. George?
Being that variances we do subjective look at a number of factors. I don't think it's in harmony, but I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Bonnie? You want to circle back?
No. I really like to be able to say yes, but when I look at 13 feet, and we need to look at properties not necessarily by the current owner's use, but by anyone's use, a future owner. So although, I sympathize with people that are trying to make it handicapped accessible, sometimes by, going that close to the water. So I'm going to say no on this one.
Okay. Amy?
I'm going to say yes. The neighbors are in support of it as well.
Rob?
I'm going to say no, being that it's that close to the water.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. Okay, so that is a yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I say yes, it is. Living goal number 3. It's making a dilapidated deck safer. I mean, you can easily trip over that step, go through the wood. The lattice isn't going to hold an adult from falling over.
Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Come back, I'm looking for
Okay.
my reasons here.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, and just take your time.
I'll say yes.
Okay. Yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Well, again, adapting it for folks with a handicap, very, very reasonable, I think. So I'm a yes. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner.
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I believe it is unique to the property because they're trying to use the existing deck and they just want to access it differently.
Okay. Yes from Jill. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, and I'd like to add to that too, the way that the house is built there, I think that's unique to it as well.
Okay. Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That's a yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance, if granted, maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, George Fiedler, I believe that it does. They're going to replace the deck. They're going to make it slightly bigger, but it's not going to change the character.
Okay. Yes from George. Jill?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations.
Well, Mr. Chair, yes, economics were not discussed.
Okay. Jill?
Yes.
George? Yes. Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Amy? Or excuse me, Mike. I was looking at the wrong thing.
Yes.
All right, and I am a yes, so yes for number 7. So with all 7 questions being answered in the affirmative, looking for an approval of the variance request.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to also make sure we add the recommended condition number 3 that they remove the proposed impervious to get down to 25%.
Yep. Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Add to what Jill had to say.
Okay. All right. So the remaining votes, Jill?
Yes.
George? Yes. Bonnie?
No.
No. Okay. Rob?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so variance request is granted. Good luck. Number 6, the request from Aaron and Sarah Middendorf, Avon, Minnesota, from section 6.9.6A of Stearns County Land Use and Zoning Ordinance 439 to increase the animal unit density in urban expansion zoning to a 9.99 animal units. Said ordinance allows a maximum AUD of 3 animal units on a 7.28 acres. And that is at 18729 County Road 54, Avon, Minnesota. And if I can get your names and address for the public record, please. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So do we need to note that as a different thing? Because that's what appears on our...
It's okay.
Okay.
I'm Aaron Middendorf, 18729 County Road 54, Albany.
All right, very good. And now that I've actually remembered to do this properly, sorry, Jamie, that you never got that benefit, asking people who made site visits. Jill?
No.
George?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike? Yep. And I was able to visit as well, so there you go.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So, Aaron and Sarah Middendorf are requesting an animal unit density increase in urban expansion zoning to 9.99 animal units on 7.28 acres. The current ordinance allows a maximum of 3 animal units, and they are currently at 4.1 animal units with their animals that they have right now. With that, all the animals are located primarily on pasture with very minimal manure accumulation throughout the year. They are mainly in pasture, just pointing that out. The site is a previously registered feedlot. It was deactivated in 2007 as it was found to no longer have animals, but the previous owner did specify that they wished to maintain pasturing on site, and the current owners purchased the property in 2017. The property is currently outside the city limits of the city of Avon, but is located in an orderly annexation area for the city. The city of Avon does not have any registered feedlots within their city limits, but there are currently 6 feedlots within the OAA, the orderly annexation area, 2 greater than 10 animal unit sites and 4 less than 10 animal unit sites. I did contact the city of Avon to see if they had any comment on this variance request yesterday. They had no comments or concerns about the increase. Just, I'm going to point that out before I forget about it. They are proposing to increase it to 9.99 animal units, and there are no valid feedlot-related complaints on file for the property. The nearest home is 479 feet to the north from the lean-to number 2. There are 85 residences and 5 feedlots within a 1-mile radius of the property. And the surrounding parcels to the north are zoned A40. The parcel to the south is all municipality, city of Avon. ESD staff was on site on August 14th, 2023 for an assistance inspection in relation to this variance request. And Avon Township, the Star Post, Cold Spring Records, City of Avon, and property owners within 500 feet of the property were notified of the request. An alternative to granting the variance request would be to grant an animal unit density greater than the already allowed 3 animal units, but less than the 9.99 that is requested.
All right, applicants, anything you'd want to say to the board?
I guess the reason we want to increase the animal units is because our kids are in 4-H and FFA, and they are showing animals. And
Can you pull the microphone close so they can hear what you just
That will
said?
kill you. You don't want to do that.
it's become a great hobby for them, and for them to take care of animals has taught them a lot of life lessons, I feel like. So we have 5 kids.
They need that space.
Yeah.
Any questions from board members to staff or the applicant?
Yeah, a question for staff. So the criteria is for 7.2 acres, which this is, right?
7.28 acres, yes.
You can have 3 animal units?
3 animal units.
So define to me what an animal unit is.
An animal unit is, as measured by the state, 1,000 pounds. So think of your typical steer, your typical beef steer, or a horse. We think of those as about 1,000 pounds. So their breakdown, they have 1 horse for 1 animal unit. Let me find it here. 2 heifers for 0.7 animal units. 1 steer for 1 animal unit. 10 ducks, and ducks are like 0.003. Goats, which are like 0.075. So it's per 1,000 pounds.
And they want to increase it to how many?
9.99.
Okay, thank you.
This is a staff question. I mean, this was already a bigger lot unit at one time, so did that same apply for the same acreage?
I did not find if that was the same acreage. I'm going to guess no. My best assumption is that it was the whole 40-acre lot, or close to 40 acre, but I did not find the size that it was.
You guys know?
How big the original farm was? Not exactly. They definitely sold some to the city at one point.
So you said there were how many farms within the, how many mile radius was it?
Yeah, there are 5 feedlots within a 1-mile radius of this property. 6 feedlots in the orderly annexation area of the city of Avon. 2 of them larger than 10 animal units. 4 less than.
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
And I have a question. When you spoke with the Avon staff or people, did they have any indication, just because this is labeled as an orderly annex area, if they had any plans on in the near future annexing this property or?
I don't believe they had any plans in the near future. When I spoke with the clerk, she said there were no plans to develop the property that they own, that larger chunk, in the next 10 years. They did not have plans to expand that far in the next 10 years.
They even fill the Avon Estates yet either, so. There's quite a few lots in there. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, question for staff. Could I get some context on why there is the lower amount of animal unit density expected in this expansion zoning area?
Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, really the intent of that urban expansion is to try to limit more agricultural use in theory, because the city is going to expand into those areas. So again, context, remember zoning happened 23 years ago, so the idea was, oh, these areas will probably expand and we'll see more growth, but it is hit and miss with development. Some areas expand faster, some are smaller. Whether it's the city of St. Cloud or other cities you've seen where they have larger annexation areas and then they don't develop. So it's kind of, you have to take it with a grain of salt with why they were trying to limit animal units, because they didn't want to create land use and zoning conflicts. But there are existing animals in those areas.
It sounds like the surrounding lots are A40. If this was an A40 lot of the same size of 7.28 acres, what would be the animal unit density allowed?
I'm going to ask Shelley if she can pull up the ordinance. I can't think of it off.
Where am I looking? Tell me where I'm looking.
Section 6.9.
313 is my other page. Okay.
Section 6.9.3, I believe it is.
9.3.
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head.
6.9.1. Look at that. 6.9.3 animal unit feedlots.
Hey, good job.
I believe it's.
Animal,
I think it's.
What am I
three
looking?
animal
A40.
Animal unit density.
Okay, come over here. You can show me animal units.
Keep scrolling.
You know where you're looking. I don't.
So, if they say no, it's like, it's on them, the city.
But at one point in time.
At one time, yeah.
So.
I just thought they might develop, and look how they haven't done it.
They haven't.
Okay. Mr. Chair, Member DeLong, on 7.28 acres in A40 zoning, they would be allowed 4 animal units.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't really change a lot.
But that gives me better context. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the intent behind that, I remember when there was a lot of conversation about how many animal units in an area. It really was about manure management. So pasturing often feels different. A lot of people, how lots are arranged, whether there's wetland or non-wetland, all those factors often play into it. So just as a part of the conversation that has been had over the last 23 years.
So it's my understanding that pasturing would make it significantly safer, less manure piled up area, correct?
We don't anticipate that there is manure issues when we're typically pasturing, correct?
You're not hauling it out, are you? Spreading it anywhere?
There's very little manure. They just help the grass grow.
I was going to say, Mr. Chair and members of the board, pasturing is maintaining vegetative cover.
Yep.
So there should be no manure accumulation in theory in pasture.
The farm kid, I hope I knew that answer right now. That's good. Any other questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, again to the invisible audience. Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request? Anyone wishing to speak to the variance request? Nobody back there said yes. So looking for a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion from Amy.
Jill DeLong, I'll second.
Second from Jill. All those in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So now moving.
I do have one question for staff. In the event that, let's say all of a sudden a developer comes in and builds a bunch of houses next door on that property. And does the city have any means of counteracting, if we were to pass this, of counteracting that density?
So the best answer for that is not really, because they're in a different, they have their regulations and we have our regulations. We have more control in the area that's A40, and we have the reciprocal setbacks. I do not believe reciprocal setbacks fit within the city.
And what if they were to annex that property then?
That's a whole different game, then it's all up to them. You
Okay.
don't have to worry.
So the city would have an avenue if they wanted to develop that area.
Right,
It
but this
would be
area
jumping
that's
through some
already
hoops, but-
municipality is all yellow right now. So they have a significant amount of area that's,
It's not going to approach that very soon.
No, it's been like that for
Yep.
10 plus years.
It's probably would be nice to just stay that way.
It probably will, I would imagine.
They're gonna build in a wetland
If they
either.
had no comment, I kind of feel like, yeah, that's kind of their stance. So question number 1, the proposed use is allowed in the zoning districts in which the subject property is located, yes or no?
Okay, I have a question. So what does this fall under? It's not really like an A40. Would it fall under this orderly annex?
Urban expansion.
Expansion?
urban
Okay.
expansion is the district, and the use is an animal feedlot. The density of the animal feedlot is what the variance is related to. So the use is something that is allowed. It's just a matter of how many animal units do you want to allow in that area.
So yes, it is allowed in urban expansion.
Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 1. Number 2, the variance will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the official controls or any related ordinances.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to say no. It doesn't abide by the criteria for it.
Okay. No from George. Jill?
I was a city kid, so I'll state that first and foremost. But I'm going to say yes, just based off of hearing from farm folks that pasture is different than having very condensed manure accumulation. And I feel like that sounds like the purpose of this official control. So I'm going to say yes.
All right, yes from Jill. Bonnie?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Amy?
Yes.
Rob? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 2. Number 3, the variance will be consistent with the comprehensive plan, yes or no?
Mr. Chair, Jill DeLong, I'm going to say yes under agricultural use policies number 2 to emphasize the importance of animal agriculture to the county economy by treating it as a priority land use compared with residential or other non-agricultural uses. So it's specifically stating they want to prioritize agricultural use over residential or future potential residential.
Okay. Yes.
And Mr. Chair, for question number 2, if I can just add this as a comment, if we look at 9.15.1 under urban expansion definition, it does say that residential development may only be allowed at a low density not to exceed 1 residence per 40, and that agriculture is the primary and preferred land use until annexation.
Yeah, thank you. George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 3. Number 4, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, I'm a yes. And I like to point out too, 4-H teaches kids just a ton of positive youth development. So I think it's great that they're involved.
And again, looking at all those farms within a very close radius, I don't think it would change anything, so I'm a yes.
I had 3 of them in there too.
Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Okay, and that's yes for number 4. Number 5, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner.
Well, I would say it wasn't the landowner's decision to designate this as an urban expansion district, at least I don't believe it was. So it was out of their control.
Okay, yes from Bonnie. Jill?
Me on that one.
Okay, George?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, and I'd also like to just state the fact too, at one point in time, this property was actually a larger feedlot than what they're asking for.
Okay, Rob?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
I'm going to state that, if it was not an urban expansion, it would be A40, but it would still be 7.28 acres. And as staff said, that the animal density units for 7.28 acres in A40 is only 4, not 9.99. So it's the landowner who is wanting to do more than that. So I think it is created by the landowner.
Okay. No from you, so it's a yes for number 5. Number 6, the variance if granted maintains the essential character of the locality. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, there's other feedlots in the area.
If you've been there, you kind of
Yeah,
know
they're
that.
like right down the road.
Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 6. Number 7, the need for the variance involves more than economic considerations. Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, yes, economics were not considered.
Yes from Amy. Jill?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Bonnie?
Yes.
Rob? And Mike? And I'm a yes, so that's a yes for number 7. All 7 questions being answered in the affirmative. Looking please for a motion to approve the variance request.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion from Amy,
I'll second.
second from Bonnie. All right, remaining votes, Jill,
Yes.
George,
No.
Rob,
Yeah.
Mike, and I am a yes, so your variance request is granted. Thank you very much.
Thanks for waiting patiently.
Any idea of what we got going on for the next month?
The Klapak you
Yep.
forward, and then the one additional that we know of. So it's just 2 that we're aware of.
Is it deadline tomorrow?
So
Oh,
we're
okay.
done. We just will have the 2. We do need to do the minutes, and
Yep.
then I have a question for you.
May not answer.
It's up to you.
Motion to, I do not have the minutes in front of me. What date was that again?
August, is it 10?
Do you not have the August
August 10.
minutes before then?
Yeah, we got them.
Yeah, I see. I saw them, but yeah.
I'm reading it weird. That's
It's
me,
been a long
not
night.
you.
Anybody want to approve the minutes after a perusal of them?
Mr. Chair, I'll approve the minutes.
Thank you, Motion from Amy to approve the minutes. Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Good job, Rob. I like it. All those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion does carry.
Okay, the last little piece of information is, if you notice in your packet, for your findings of fact, we did not put in the numbered areas. So the question related to the comp plan goals. So normally, or not normally, previously, we would have put either check boxes or numbers in here to say which agenda items. However, you guys are really good at this, and you've done a really good job of coming up with the areas. So what we're trying to do is actually wean the planning commission off of what we do. Mike's looking at me with the
Fine,
hairy
no
eyeball.
pressure.
But the answer is really so that we're not leading you to your answers. You determine your answers. That's why we've done it. But I thought I would check in with you to see if you want us to go back to what we did before, or are you guys good with where you're at?
I am so completely oblivious. I didn't even know that existed.
Oh, thank you,
Then you're
Amy.
good.
I feel
Good.
better.
I never look at them.
And Jill doesn't look at it, okay.
Nobody ever really sat down and explained how to use it that way, so.
Okay.
You're good.
So it was only Rob who was confused.
Apparently. I'm the only one who used it. So.
I have my laminated ones from 2020, so I don't look at the ones in the mail.
Great, and you guys have been utilizing the findings and doing exactly what you're supposed to do. You check the box, you say which one the goal or the policy. That's exactly what you should be doing. So it's easier if we just put the whole piece in like this without us making comment on it. We had just been kind of hand-holding the Planning Commission, and we're going to stop that, just so you know. So get ready, Mike.
It's a good thing he makes his own decisions here.
Yeah, see? Now he's ready to roll.
I bet you didn't even know
And
that
wouldn't
either.
judiciously we'd be in better shape if we were sued to not have had you guide
Correct.
us?
Exactly why we want to stop hand-holding the Planning Commission.
Uh-oh,
So-
you guys get sued.
No.
No.
So-
but-
So I have a question. Sorry
Yes.
to have to bring this up because I know where I want to go. These items that we have on her A through E,
Yes.
where did those come from? I got a problem with some of these.
Well, you can have the problem, and I understand that, but they came from the land use litigation that's occurred related to after the fact. So while we have statute, that gives us the first factors. There was a significant amount of litigation related to after the fact requests. And so then we have the law, the opinions and the verdicts that have occurred, and those come from that. So the land use, the laws related, or the decisions that were made related to after the fact requests is how we got to those findings, those additional factors to consider. Originally, there was a Stadsvold case where we had other ways of answering, and I think, Bonnie, you were here when we kind of went back and forth, but now this is a consideration. So you did exactly what you should have done when reconsidering that other one and said, let's talk about those other mitigating factors.
Oh, that was a good call on Jill.
So it was a really good way for you
And
guys to proceed.
So that's so it's important for us to see if there are similar structures in the area.
That is
So if I came in here as an applicant, that's one of the factors I'd say, well, I want this approved because I know Joe Schmo, Donald Duck, they all have similar things.
Character of the neighborhood is one of them. However, uniqueness to the property is probably the one and landowner created. So those are the factors that typically, but when it's, where's my A through?
What?
I said it was landowner created. I said that's a factual thing, but.
After the fact.
The reason why I ask for why did you say yes or why did you say no is because we're trying to protect the county from being sued, right? And so if we have good reasoning, at least listed out, then hopefully that will help avoid getting sued.
Well, and it was a good discussion to have.
It is. And so going through and where I thought the value was is in the question letter D, are the county's benefits outweighed by the applicant's burden? And you had to look at that. You looked at time, you looked at the area. Those are those factors. And those aren't my decisions to make. Those are your decisions to make. That's why you are the appointed Board of Adjustment. But by looking at each of those, I think it helped you go, okay, which way do I feel we should go on that? And then you individually decide. But yeah, those were created by case law related to after the fact variances that occurred after the Stadsvold decision. And that was probably 15 years ago with that Stadsvold decision. So it's case law related is where these factors come from.
Do I need to talk into this? Are we still on?
Yeah, technically we're still on.
So I've stated this frustration before, that this is so subjective. We can come in here and it depends on kind of how we feel about a particular situation. You can look at these questions and you can make them go any way you want.
Yes, that's why you are the Board of Adjustment.
Right. That's the fallacy in this whole system is anybody that comes in here can make it go either way.
That's why there's 7 of us. We
That's
have to
why
convince
there's 7
enough
of us.
people to agree.
That's exactly
Right.
the point.
But even citing what the criteria is, what's in the book does not sway anybody. They still
Well,
go
I
the other way.
disagree. I have actually watched you guys sway, and I've watched you think through process, and I know that you guys make your independent decision based on how you're seeing that. You're taking into consideration what that site looks like. You're taking into consideration what's happening around it. You're taking into consideration how long it's been there, if it's after the fact. All of those factors, and I watched every one of you do it, so I know you're doing it. Now, it's not a scientific method. I don't get to weigh it and go, it is, like that survey earlier, 0.99 versus 1. And those are the factors that we deal with. So we deal with the fact we have to process every application, because if I had the administrative right to say no to everything, I could say no because it doesn't meet those criteria. But they aren't giving me that. They're giving that to you. You're that board. You have the opinions. You have the process. You decide value for that request.
That's why they call it the Board of Adjustment. We're here to use common sense and compassion and the rules, come to a logical conclusion.
Right. So you decided that 6 inches was okay, and that's an okay decision. So if you say 6 inches is okay, that's fine. You said no to the deck, yes to the addition for the lean-to, but then what was that other thing? Screened-in porch, the one that I struggled to remember. So then you said yes to the screened-in porch, but you said, yeah, but it has to be behind that line. So that's why they then made a change to their request. That's exactly what happens. Much less negotiation than there used to be. I'll look at Bonnie. There used to be a lot more of that, but that's kind of, as you see it happening in front of you, that's what happens. That's why you are Board of Adjustment. So it was a really good meeting for me because you guys really worked through all of that. And George, I know it's frustrating, but that's okay because that's what we
need
do.
artificial intelligence to do this.
We just all need
You
to
would
agree
not
with
be
George.
happy with artificial intelligence doing it.
Yeah, because if it was that cut and dried, there'd be no need for this board.
Correct.
That's, in my opinion, that's the goal. No need for this board. Because it's so
there's
fuzzy.
always, yeah, I know, but there's always unique circumstances to no matter what law you have, there's always going to be something because the lawmakers can never anticipate all of the possible scenarios.
Correct. That's why you exist. And did exactly what you did tonight. Worked through each case, each site, each request, each component of each request. So that was exactly what you're supposed to do. Even though we scrambled for findings of fact, we got there. I just made Brenda a little crazy. It's all good. It was exactly what you're supposed to do.
Thank you for the discussion.
Yeah, I
Okay,
appreciate it.
Can I just ask a silly question? So you know how there's more than, okay, like tonight we had three. So when we get our reports, can they break those down for us? Like, can they put them in separate paragraphs? Okay, like, this will be the first one. This is the first issue. And then,
Or bullet points.
break it down in issues, because it's just collaborated together and it's like you're just,
Yeah, if you could have bullet points or like a summary of
Or
bullet
even like
points.
parentheses to say A, B,
This one,
C.
here's this one, here's this one. Okay.
yeah, if we can just kind of break it down a little bit and just, okay, this is our first
Give
issue.
some differentiation is
This
what
is
I'm
our
hearing.
second issue, and then this will be our third item.
We can try that, and then you guys can tell us if you think we're doing it, if it helps the way you need it to be.
It's just hard sometimes with one huge paragraph to pick out which line is
Yeah.
what.
Like tonight, like I didn't realize that the deck and the overhang were a thing. I didn't realize the overhead thing.
The lean-to or
part,
the
lean.
screened-in
I didn't
porch?
realize the lean was a thing.
Yeah.
Well, as part of the deck.
Yeah,
I kind of,
On the
I
findings.
struggle a little bit too, yeah.
So, like, had that have been broken down into 4 different sections, like we were gonna vote 4 different ways, that probably would have been how, and I realized tonight was a very unique situation.
We kind of thought that you would look at the after the fact all as one. However, you guys went, yeah, this one could be trimmed down, which was a lot of the conversation. It shouldn't go in front of that line. And then that left that other piece in, or it would have created a problem for the lean-to piece. And you're like, but that's why you went through and did all of that, back to A through D. So.
And I think with that, we also, we're reasonable to the landowner and maintain that integrity of preserving, lake quality and things like that. So that was pretty cool.
I think it was really good discussion, and everybody did exactly what I wanted them to do. So, excellent job.
Did we get a Snickers candy bar?
I would if I had. I didn't.
What?
I didn't bring any extra.
I'm kidding.
There are just the 2 items. I will not be here. Angie will not be here next month.
Free range.
But I will have, it'll be Becky or Mark. We will have a supervisor here, unless my other meeting gets canceled, which could happen, and then you end up with me. Angie's at a conference, so.
Shelley, will you be in office tomorrow?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will be calling you, because that Cloud Park, I got a lot of questions about that one.
And as a matter of fact, Rob calls, I know, Bonnie, you've called when you've needed to. George, feel free to call. Jill, you've called when you've needed to, way back when. It was several years. But, Mike, anybody can call anytime. Jake, you call. That's good.
Probably screens when I call.
Yeah.
I think she does screen my calls at this point.
I do not screen your calls.
They're like, great, Amy's calling. What kind of questions she got?
There were no silly questions. Everything was good. I wasn't at your training today, so I'm not going to go there. But I will take calls from anybody, and so will Angie or staff. We appreciate you. So excellent work.
Yeah, a motion to adjourn.
Jill moves that we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Amy.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
9:09.
Ew.